Hello everybody and welcome to my channel Rainier Books. My name is Rainer. I'm a booktuber from Sweden and Germany, but now based for many years now. I have been based in Stockholm, Sweden. I want to talk about the Swedish author Fredrik Backman today, who I know many of you know. Some of my fellow booktubers have praised in their videos. Not many have discussed his books, actually, not at least from my sort of part of booktube. Fredrik Backman has sold more than 20 million books, more than 20 million copies, and he has been translated into 25 languages. Many people love him, adore him. Not me though. And today I want to talk to you about why I don't actually admire Fredrik Backman, and why I'm not really able to read his books. But let me first speak about Fredrik Backman a little bit. He was born in 1981 in Beartown in Stockholm, a couple of kilometers from where I live here in Farsta. But he grew up in a country in the south, closer to Denmark actually, in the town of Helsingborg. And there he grew up in southern Sweden, and he worked as a journalist. He was writing for the local newspaper, Helsingborgs Dagblad, but he also wrote for a men's magazine that was called More Magazine. Here, he said later, he had learned to entertain people. In 2007, he moved, 26 years old, he moved to Stockholm and started blogging. Blogging was at the time, everybody was blogging in the 2000s. And he started blogging for a women's magazine called Veckorevyn. He had a very famous blog there about his own wedding, I think. He has married a woman of Persian descent. I named that only because there's a character later on that will be of Persian descent that is quite important for his first novel. He he had this wedding blog that was very successful with thousands of readers apparently, but then the wedding was over and so he had to find something new, and he started blogging about sports, about soccer, football as we call it in Europe. I think also about ice hockey, which is also important for his later career. But then he started blogging about a man he called Ove. And Ove was supposed to be a normal, typical Swedish guy in his 60s, in the 2007, 8, 9, 10. So go back 60 years and you will have somebody who was born in the late 1940s, early 1950s maybe. And his readers, he still had thousands of readers, some of his readers started connecting with this character called Ove, and they started adding features to the character, the readers of his blog. So Ove was a guy in his early 60s. It's a very typical Swedish name for that generation of 1940, 1950, as is Britt-Marie, for example, a name that is important for his later work as well. So Ove is a typical Swedish guy. He's living in a radhus, as we say in Sweden, which is a house built where houses are built close to each other. I don't know how that's called in English. And he is checking everybody, he's checking if anybody has his parking license, his or her parking license for the parking spots. He's checking if there are strange new people in the environment. He maybe calls the police, stuff like that. And he's always a little bit grumpy and not very nice on the outside to people. So that was the character Ove in the blog. And then he got the idea, or he was being brought to the idea, I don't know actually the exact story, to write a novel about a man called Ove, en man som heter Ove in Swedish. The novel came out in 2012, was translated into English and became a world success. It was marketed, it was capturing the hearts of millions of people all over the world, and it is the foundation to Fredrik Backman's success. The novel was later adapted into a movie, first a Swedish movie, En man som heter Ove, starring the great Swedish actor Rolf Lassgård, who does a great job. He's a great actor, and in that characterization of Ove, he's absolutely beautiful and wonderful. Then I think 2 or 3 years later, he was so popular, Backman in the US, that the US wanted to make a movie about it, and they chose Tom Hanks to play in a movie which was then set in the United States, changed a little bit the surroundings, but then was pretty close to the original, and Tom Hanks played in this movie. Ove was too difficult to pronounce, so they called him Otto. but Otto had Swedish ancestors, and actually in the movie they're eating a Swedish pastry called semla, which is not in the original novel where they eat Napoleon bakelser. Let's speak a little bit about Ove. There is an absolute tragedy over, and I say this with a smile. There's an absolute overload of tragedy in this book, and almost everything that can happen to a person happens to this poor guy named Ove. I know that some people have more misfortunes than other people. I know people, actually in my vicinity, I know people who have lost, for example, their mother, and 4 weeks later the father died, stuff like that. But Ove, he's way more sort of a magnet to tragic events. His parents die very, very early. His mother is dead, I think, already in the beginning. And then he graduates from high school, and his father is so proud. He works as a railway worker, and his father is so proud that he wants to show the marks, the graduation, the diploma to his colleagues. So he walks out and says, "Hey, my son has," and he doesn't see the train that's coming, and that kills him instantly. So the son is without parents very, very early. He meets a beautiful woman, a beautiful wife who is reading a lot of literature. And Ove, who doesn't read books at all, they are like, well, black and white, green and yellow, whatever. They are like total contraries of each other, but she loves him so much. She falls in love, unexplainably, actually. She falls in love with this guy who doesn't know anything about books. We can't talk about The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov, but she loves this guy, Ove. He's such a nice guy. He doesn't talk much, but he's great. So they fall in love, and the wife, of course, has to get some tragedy into her life. At one point, Parvena, the neighbor, the Iranian descent neighbor of Ove, who gets him more into a human being then, because he's very grumpy on the outside, this neighbor asks him why he never had children. And the explanation, of course, is his wife was pregnant. Then they went to a beautiful trip to Italy. She's pregnant. And on the way back to Sweden, the bus has a horrible accident, which kills the baby, which doesn't allow the mother, the wife, to have more children, and which puts his wife into a wheelchair. And then he also loses his job, of course, and he's unemployed. And his wife dies of cancer. Please. Okay, I continue. He's pushed out of his job. Yes, he wants to meet his wife again. So he goes to the first thing he does every morning is he goes to the cemetery and visits his wife, and he has this beautiful tear-dropping, tear-producing talks with his dead wife, with the grave, on the grave. And that's also relatable. We all lose loved ones. Yes, it is. It is relatable. And what happens? Of course, he wants to join his wife. He tries several times to kill himself. He wants to shoot himself. He wants to hang himself. He wants to poison himself with his car, and it doesn't work because there's always something else happening. Which reminds me of a very old song by Herman van Veen about the man who didn't want to live, but who always had to do something else, and that prevented him from really committing suicide. So Ove always is interrupted in his attempts to commit suicide, which I think is a way, honestly, that I really disliked about the book, because it makes a little bit fun of suicide, which I think is not allowed. And I have few taboos in my life and when I read literature, but making fun, and this seems to be a little bit of fun, because all of his failed attempts, he wants to commit suicide, but he doesn't succeed because something is happening, and then he falls with the rope is not stable enough, and that's why he can't hang himself, and he goes to the shop and complains about the rope being not of good quality. That, I think, goes too far, because we should never joke about suicide. On the other hand, Ove has a very good heart, of course. He's grumpy on the outside, and he has a very good heart. That reminds me of that old Jack Nicholson movie, you know what I mean, where we have a similar guy. Jack Nicholson plays that terrific as well, as you can imagine. And so Ove is, despite him being super grumpy and not nice really to his neighbors and to people, he's super progressive. You never expected that, did you? Because his neighbor Parvane, who comes from Iran, no problem for him. We have a lot of right-wing people in Sweden, but not our Ove. Other Uves might be right-wing and extreme, and they might not like LGBTQ people, because Uwe likes also that gay guy from the pizzeria working at the pizza place, and gives him accommodation since his father has thrown him out because he doesn't accept that his son is gay. But Uwe has no problems with that. Uwe is not only likable, he is progressive. And this, of course, connects him to a lot of the readership and makes him very interesting. So you see that Backman is really architecturing this whole thing. He's organizing this in a very clever and very beautiful way, because he makes Uwe this grumpy guy that everybody knows, but he questions the grumpiness because in the inside, the heart and the soul are beautiful and are pure. And there's an explanation why Uwe is so grumpy. I understand very much how this goes home with a lot of readers. We all have devastating events in our lives. We all lose loved ones. And for example, I have lost my parents. I have lost a dog, which I loved very much. And this is always something that touches us hard. And there's a lot of grief, and we don't know how we can overcome this grief. And we all know that we are going to grieve sooner or later. And then others will grieve about us, hopefully. So this is very relatable. That we get in trouble, that we lose our jobs, we fall in love and are neglected. And Backman uses these tools. He knows that, of course, as we do all know ourselves, and he makes us cry, but his aim is in the end to make us smile. I come back to that. Uwe is very relatable. This is too much orchestrated for me. He tries too hard, the author, to get me to cry and then smile again. And I can imagine the author writing that, oh my God, now my readers are going to cry, but now I have to make them smile so that the tears are still running down their faces, but they smile. And that's what we all want, don't we? We want to smile again after crying. And Backman delivers that stuff to us, that sort of drugs. That sugar, I would call it sugar. It's very sugary. And it's too much sugary for me. And I know that a lot of people are going to hate me for that. Well, tears are still rolling down our cheeks, and we smile again. Because so many people attend Ove's funeral and say that Uwe played... Yeah, I have to actually to talk a little bit about predictability as well, because I think much in his work and Backman's work is super predictable. But still, people love it. Maybe we love predictability. When I was watching the movie, En man som heter Ove with Rolf Lassgård, my daughter came in, my 26-year-old daughter came in, and she said, what are you watching? And I said, like 2, 3, 4 sentences about the plot. I said, they have this man called Ove, he has a lot of misfortune in his life, he's very grumpy, but actually he's very nice. And then my daughter looked at me and said, well, you know he's going to die in the end, don't you? And I said, how do you know? And she said, I don't know this book, I don't know the novel, but I just know. And she was right. Uwe dies in the end. Spoiler. His latest work, My Friends, has come out in May in English, and it's very strange because the Swedish original is going to be published first in the end of August. And many Swedes now have listened or read the book already in English in order to get the stuff, get the newest, want a new drug, the newest product by the author. And this is a novel about a girl who is 17 years old, I think, in the beginning. I tried to listen to the audiobook. I gave up after 1.5 hours. I couldn't stand this any longer. It is a girl who was brought up in foster homes, who has a very sad backstory, of course, I would say, and who then, at the same time, is extremely talented and gifted and intellectual, and, of course, I would say. And she gets in the possession of one of the most valuable paintings in the world, which is painted by a living painter who is homeless and who has created this painting 25 years ago, when he created a painting where 3 or 4 characters are on that painting in a very small part of the painting, very small section of the painting, and these were friends at the time 25 years ago, and this woman, this young woman becomes, her life changes by discovering that painting. So as you know, there will people will die in this book. There will be a lot of grief. There will be a bittersweet ending. I think you know that when you start, and you want that also as a reader when you start a Backman novel. You want to be drawn through grief and trouble and tears and pain but smile. You want to smile. You want to have that sort of humor, and you want to have a bittersweet ending, like Ove's funeral, for example, where you have to cry because Ove's gone, and but still people have loved him, and he has given people so much. So yeah, maybe that's what we all want on our own funerals, which we won't live through because we're dead when we get buried, but that people think about us with love and good memories. And I think that is really something that I don't like. It's really predictable, and grief, hardship, followed by catharsis, which is actually a classical recipe for literature since the ancient Greeks. They already did that. A formula that has always resonated with people. The emotional, and in some way, I think, when I look at the Backman novels that I have touched, that I have listened to, or that I have read, I read actually only A Man Called Ove, but the emotional, in some way, I think this kind of literature is the emotional counterpart to cozy crime novels. And I think that the readership would also like cozy crimes, which I don't like, as you know when you follow my channel. So there's enough drama in these books to engage, but it's not as dark as reality sometimes can be. So concerning the writing, and there I would speak about my friends, why I DNF'd my friends, is that I think the writing is banal. It is engaging in a way, and I can understand why people engage in the writing, why they continue reading on and on and on. Because really, Backman knows how to play the chords of many readers. He doesn't play my chords. And the language is too banal. And he explains everything to us. He explains every feeling. There's no subtext. There is just surface. And this is really something that bothers me, about this kind of literature. Because I think that readers do deserve more under the surface. It is underestimating readers when you think you have to explain everything, and that's what Backman is doing. And I really think this is a funny guy. I saw this video where he is performing in the United States at a Simon & Schuster event in New York, and he's really super funny. And he knows how to play us, he knows how to play the readers, and I understand also the readers who like his stuff. And let me say this at the end, frank and clear, I don't judge anyone who has bought all the Backman novels and read all the Backman novels and seen all the adaptations into movies and TV shows. It's just not the thing for me, and I just wanted to tell you why it's not the thing for me. It's too banal, it's too predictable, it's too much tragedy, it's too much grief, and there is also always this kind of bittersweet moments in it that really do not exist that much in life. We have them sometimes, and I know the feeling, and I know the beautiful song by Kacey Musgraves, happy and sad at the same time. That's what Kacey has expressed, much more beautiful than Backman ever was capable of doing in that 4-minute song, or what it is, happy and sad at the same time. We all have these feelings. In a way, we are at a funeral of some kind of Ove, and we are happy that Ove existed, but at the same time he makes us cry because he's gone. I know that, but it's just too much. Thanks very much for watching this video. Don't unsubscribe if you love Backman. But I just had to say this. Bye-bye.